So various conclusions. Yes, bees are in decline. These declines are well documented. They are real, and supported by good, strong scientific evidence, which is the only of these counts. The drivers of decline on many varied depending on species. The effects of pollinator loss could be absolutely huge. So is it a catastrophe? Not yet, but it could be. On the positive side, we are aware of the problem. Awareness is being raised all the time and people are taking actions. Before fixing is missing, you can recognize the problem. At least it's been done. Well, the 90s came around and finally it clicked that normal people could get online, which hadn't really clicked before. And the little trick that finally put it together was Tim Berners-Lee HTML, so thank you to the UK for providing the fellow who finally put the missing link in place. And then what happened in the 90s was this extraordinary outpouring of creativity and constructiveness from millions and millions of people. There were millions of people making web pages, creating content online, creating social experiments, creating lessons, all sorts of things. And the first decade of the web took place without much a profit motive, without any particular charismatic figures driving it, without fear, without a desire for an afterlife or any other religious gambits, without advertising, without any of the traditional motivational schemes. It simply happened because people enjoyed it and it was a good idea. Climate is inextricably linked with erosion because it affects the average rate of material loss across a landscape. In general, wetter conditions favor faster rates of erosion. However, more moisture also promotes the growth of vegetation, which helps to armor the surface. Mountains in polar latitudes are the least vulnerable to erosion, partly because of the aridity of cold climates, and partly because continental ice sheets, such as those on Greenland and Antarctica, commonly are frozen to the underlying rock and cause little erosion. In contrast, mountain glaciers such as those of the European Alps and the Sierra Nevada in California aggressively attack the subsurface rock, so that this type of glacier may be the Earth's most potent erosional agent. The conservation and sustainable use of medicinal plants have been studied extensively. Various sets of recommendations have been compiled regarding their conservation, including the establishment of systems for species inventorying and status monitoring, and the need for coordinated conservation practices based on both in situ and ex situ strategies. For medicinal plants with increasingly limited supplies, sustainable use of wild resources can be an effective conservation alternative. In China and South Africa, the situation is particularly critical because of the high demands of large populations. Many medicinal plants have been introduced in Persian medicine references for various respiratory disorders. Considering the growing interest in herbal medicines, this review aimed to introduce medicinal herbs recommended by Persian medicine (PM) references for respiratory diseases and to discuss their activity against respiratory viruses. Methods. The medicinal plants recommended for respiratory disorders were extracted from the main PM textbooks. Subsequently, their activity against respiratory viruses was systematically investigated via queries of scientific databases. Results. Searching PM references for medicinal plants used in the management of respiratory disorders yielded 45 results. Of them, 18 possess antiviral activity against respiratory viruses. There were 29 in vitro studies, including studies on human cell lines, and 5 in vivo studies. Conclusion. This research demonstrated that many of the medicinal plants mentioned for the respiratory diseases health and fitness is the key to a long, active and enjoyable life. It is correctly stated that health is the actual wealth that a person can retain. Teachers assign this topic to their students to enhance their knowledge about staying healthy and fit, and create awareness among others as well. It also results in the development of a healthy lifestyle for children. Students need to realize the importance of staying healthy and fit. Also, being the future generation, they can play a vital role in creating awareness and maintaining a stable health regime. So happiness economics can help us get to these questions, and I'll try to give you some examples of this. Now, even though there's a lot of skepticism, originally about using this surveys what people say make them happy. The number of reasons that we are getting increasingly confident in doing so. One is that their consistent pattern, remarkable consistent pattern, determines well-being. Across large samples of people, across countries, across the world, and over time. Some of the basic things that make people happy, and I will show you some of these: income, health, marital status, employment status. Some of these very basic things are remarkably consistent across countries, across world, so that gives us some sense that these surveys are picking up consistent patterns. And, when we know what consistent patterns are, we can look how other things that very much more affect people's well-being. The environment and equality, the nature's institution raging on living, and all kinds of other things that very much more. A leader can define or clarify goals by issuing a memo or an executive order, an edict or a fatwa or a tweet, by passing a law, barking a command, or presenting an interesting idea in a meeting of colleagues. Leaders can mobilize people's energies in ways that range from subtle, quiet persuasion to the coercive threat or the use of deadly force. Sometimes a charismatic leader such as Martin Luther King Jr. can define goals and mobilize energies through rhetoric and the power of example. We can think of leadership as a spectrum, in terms of both visibility and the power the leader wields. On one end of the spectrum, we have the most visible, authoritative leaders like the President of the United States or the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, or a dictator such as Hitler or Gaddafi. At the opposite end of the spectrum is casual, low-key leadership found in countless situations every day. Around the world, leadership that can make a significant difference to the individuals whose lives are touched by it. We are living through one of the greatest of scientific endeavors, the attempt to understand the most complex object in the universe, the brain. Scientists are accumulating vast amounts of data about structure and function in a huge array of brains, from the tiniest to our own. Tens of thousands of researchers are devoting massive amounts of time and energy to thinking about what brains do. An astonishing new technology, including computers and artificial intelligence, is enabling us to both describe and manipulate that activity. Humans can tell computers what to do and how to do, by giving the meaning of the certain words. Computers can operate as programmed, and develop systems and Symbols. Computers work by analyzing messages into bytes, and this function is similar to human brains. Both human brains and computers are symbol processors, so computers have potential to bring artificial intelligence.
An essay is a chance to identify your read and learned. As a writer, you first need to collect many materials, then write an essay in 4 or 5 paragraphs, structures and quotes. If someone is searching for a book or article to read, he or she will decide from the very beginning whether this work is worth attention. If you want to wow your teacher, polish the introduction, especially the first couple of sentences. Add an essay hook, something interesting, funny, shocking, or intriguing to win the reader's attention. Build an emotional connection with your reader right from the start. A hook in the essay is a catchy sentence or paragraph in the impressive introduction which serves as an attention element and an important part. An excellent hook sentence is engaging and interesting. It is a perfect method to start an argumentative or persuasive essay. The hook for your essay often appears in the first sentence. The opening paragraph includes a thesis sentence. Some popular hook choices can include using an interesting quote, a little-known fact, famous last words, or a statistic.